Hello and welcome to another episode of Minnesota Liberty podcast sponsored by the Libertarian Party in Minnesota. I am one of your hosts, Rebecca Whiting. I have TJ Hawthorne and Charlie Kuklins with me this evening, all part of the LPMN. And well, you two are kind of in the same area, in the metro. Do you consider that the same area, the metro?
Yeah. I would say so. If you want to refer to it as the metro.
Just different parts, obviously. I don't know. There's like Greater Minnesota and the Metro, and that's
pretty much.
Yeah. So this evening, we've kind of. We've taken breaks before from the podcast, but last week we weren't on. Were we on the week before that? We were on the week before that.
Yeah.
But last week we weren't on because Bemidji was kind of hit by a pretty big storm, and where we live was right in the center of that path. So we didn't have electricity for a while, running water, any of those modern necessities, I guess. And then, I don't know, the storm hit on the 21st, which was a Saturday, but there was so much. Well, TJ, you came up here. And
it was Friday, wasn't it? It was a Friday night, I guess, maybe Saturday morning.
Friday night. The electricity went out at 12:30 in the morning on Saturday. The storm probably hit technically before midnight, but
I got done with what I had to do Saturday morning, and I saw the Facebook post by TC, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's some damage. Even his post was from hearsay from, I don't know when he actually got to talk to you or talk to who. And I was like, well, I got the rest of the day. Let's go. And I grabbed Simmers and went and got a chainsaw and then headed up. We only had a few hours left of daylight by the time we got there, but I couldn't believe how many trees were down just coming into Bemidji and then coming into the farm area. And you guys still got some work ahead of you, and that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, this is going to be a long-term endeavor, trying to recover from this. Which I went through like this weird, and I'm from New Orleans originally, so like Hurricane Katrina, I remember that. This was very reminiscent of major disasters, which I think technically this was. And they have since categorized this storm as a derecho, and I'm not even entirely sure what that is. But that the storm wasn't just a thunderstorm, that it was swirling counterclockwise, and it was huge. And they recorded 120 mile an hour winds across this 10-mile stretch, which went right over our place. And it started just north of Bemidji, and then went through the entirety of Bemidji. And we're just southeast of Bemidji, and ended probably 4 or 5 miles past where we live. And as soon as you hit the area where that storm really, peaked, you can tell, like the trees were just folded over.
And you know what? That's exactly. Now that I'm thinking about it, if it were like a tornado swirling wind, the trees wouldn't have been. They really looked like they were carefully cut and all taken down all along the one side of the road.
And that's the thing is that. And I don't know a lot about this type of storm. I guess I'm going to have to do a little research. I should have done that before we started the podcast. But the derecho is some sort of like straight line winds, widespread, kind of, I guess, reminiscent. What it looked like on the radar to me was reminiscent of a hurricane, but over land, not water. You know what I mean? And there was 3 confirmed tornadoes in Bemidji. Like in the city of Bemidji. So on top of that storm, in the middle of it, there were also additionally tornadoes. And I think that where we live, because we live far enough outside of town, before our electricity and our power went out, I was getting text messages from friends in town telling me to, like, you guys need to make sure you're safe. The sirens are going off, because it hit them first. And once the power went out, though, we lost our ability to, like, there were no cell phone towers were down. My emergency radio, like, that I have plugged in, because I know we're far enough away from town, right? I realized that the batteries were dead. Probably should replace those at some point in the last 10 years. And so I was, like, rotating through windows in our house, trying to see outside of the house, because we live in the middle of the woods. So there wouldn't have been a lot of warning
Yeah.
if something were coming. But the trees were swirling here. And, like, I'm talking about, like, giant maple trees swirling in the winds. And then you had the ear popping sensation, and it was extraordinarily loud. The whole storm was, from beginning to end. This was different. So, yeah. And I mean,
oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
No, one Saturday morning, once we woke up, and I stayed up for almost most of the night, just, because there's no way of knowing, like, if something's going to happen, somebody had to be awake,
Right.
And Saturday morning, when we finally woke up, and it was only like 3 hours after I'd finally fallen asleep. But my husband woke me up and was like, "Hey, we can't get out." I was like, "What does that mean?" Because we've had storms before, and you just cut the trees out of the driveway and, go. But it took us 5 hours of cutting in the driveway to get down our driveway, down the road, and then up my father-in-law's driveway, who lives next door, to get our generator, because the electric power was out. And that wasn't even like cutting, chopping, organizing. That was just clearing a path, because it was there were so many trees down. And friends, they did start, like, people started, like, calling and checking, and there was like a short window where I could get phone calls, or at least text messages, I think. No, I got one phone call, and then it all went, I don't know what happened. Anyways, and that was how getting the message out, just being like, we got the chainsaws out, we're checking on things, and but we couldn't get communication out anymore. Nobody could. And anybody that came in to help us had to park and walk in, because the trees were so blocked. Like, the roads were they were impassable.
All your humans were safe, but did you lose any farm animals?
Yeah, humans were all safe. We lost we lost some pigs that had been born a couple of days before, so just little piglets. And somebody just started the tractor, so
farm.
they were tiny, but so it was the winds, but it was just like torrential rains too. So, and that's what happened. That's how they died, is that the low spots all flooded in the middle. So it was all of that.
Oh, man. Horrible.
Now, I know you had some people come up, and, like, TJ, you went up there. What's the, like, around Bemidji? What's been the response?
Everybody just kind of got to work, and a lot of neighbors helping neighbors. There's not a lot of resources up here. It's a small rural county. Bemidji is the biggest town in a 2-hour, radius all the way around. And we have had a number of crews that came up here to try and help, and there's a lot of scam artists out there, as it turns out.
So here's I don't mean to take away from your personal experience, but I know at one point Governor Walz did issue a peacetime emergency for the tornadoes up there. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious as to what the response has been, but the comment with a lot of scam artists, I'm interested in understanding what the response has been, and is it adequate? Is it are people coming in to take I don't want to impugn anybody's motives, is my problem.
Well, no, there are definitely those people out there though, because if somebody walked up to our house and was like, "Hey, we'll clean up your trees for you." It was going to be, they told us, half a day's of work. How much do you think, just guessing, how much do you think they were going to charge?
$1,500? 500?
What would you think, Charlie?
Knowing what prices are per tree down here, it's almost like, I mean, you're looking at about, I don't know, $700 to $1,000 a tree.
$6,000 is what they were going to charge us. Hold on, I got to close my window. This tractor's not.
Well, and I guess if they had a team of 5 or 6 guys that were handy with the chainsaws and stuff, but was that including removing all the stumps too? Because I was thinking about that too.
It wouldn't be removing stumps. That's what I was thinking. It's like you had a residential. You're like, okay, we're gonna trim down the tree. We're gonna remove the stump. Would have been about $1,000 a tree.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they're just gonna clear off your driveway and leave it.
Yeah, clear it off, leave it on the side of the road. That was for $6,000.
No.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. That's anyways. So there are definitely those people that are kind of like trying to take advantage of a bad situation.
Yep. Well, here's the thing. When these hurricanes happen and whatever disasters happen, the folks get accused of jacking the price up for this or that, right? Whether it's building materials or whatever. And on my way up there, I bought a generator too, right? And the guy at was it Northern Tool? Was the other one? What's the tractor? Anyways, he's like, oh, that's the 10th generator I sold today, and we're Ryan and I were thinking, oh yeah, well, storms happen. That's the time to sell, supply and demand. Now, I don't want to go off track too much, but I don't want to be. I don't know if these guys are scams. Like they're trying to. Their price is the information, right? They want $6,000. Hell no. How do you know that their neighbor down the road is like very incapable of doing anything and is very willing to pay $6,000 to have all their trees cut down?
Well, I'm sure that there are people out there that have that kind of money that are willing to do that. But Michigan is not the kind of town that has a lot of.
They're dumb to ask for that. Sure, I would say, but that they're putting their feet in the water, right? If they go up your road and back down, and everybody says no, okay, now we'll go for $3,000.
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, all 4 of us down our road.
But I think that when you start putting the state incentives, right? When governor starts declaring these things, and then what kind of not ambulance chasers, but per se, right? Kind of people that come in after the storm and get all the government cheese that is spread out.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: is that I haven't seen any, and this is also. I haven't been able to speak to an insurance adjuster about our place yet because they're just swamped. And our house is still intact. So like we got out of this without anything being wrong with our main structure, So and a part of me is like, well, I'm not in a hurry, because my neighbor, they lost their roof. Their roof is just gone and it's in pieces in the woods.
It just blew off then?
Yeah, it's just gone.
I suppose if it caught when that's that hard of a wind.
Yeah, they're like, so at our place, we lost our trees. We lost all our smaller buildings. Our wood shed is just gone. And it was a 8 by 24 foot wood shed. It's gone. But there were places that lost, like structurally, their homes are no longer sound. And we had another family that was living with us for a little while because it's such a giant tree had fallen on their roof. And anyways, but as far as like resources, emergency wise, what the state's providing, I haven't seen any. And maybe they're like helping pay for like the side dumps that are coming in and taking away debris. But as far as like cleaning up your property lines and all driveways, roads, if it fell off of your property onto the road, then it's your responsibility to, I think, technically
probably also like any of those incorporated towns that maybe have water, wastewater systems that provide to the town. You know what I mean? Like they don't have a well. I don't know how many people up there don't have a well, but there's probably municipal water there in
the town there is. They definitely have city water in town.
That's where the state funds probably go. Make sure that's
probably and they'll like fix gas lines, that kind of stuff, because there was a lot of gas lines that were damaged because the trees when they were pulled up, the roots like took the gas lines with them, but insurance doesn't cover trees, doesn't cover any of the clearing. It doesn't cover any of that. And what I think, and like I said, I haven't talked to an adjuster yet, so I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they just cover like our main house, and we have farm insurance, so they cover our barn. But I went through and looked at all our stuff, and it's always after a disaster, and you realize, oh, this is insufficient. I should have updated this like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So because you don't know what's going to happen. So, but state emergency kinds of things, I mean, individually, I don't think we're benefiting from it too much.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want to transition, but
I was just going to say, hey, yes, the state help for some of the municipal things, fine. If anybody out there watching has time to volunteer, get out. I know there's there was also tornadoes in Carver County a couple days ago, and haven't heard anything from anybody out there yet. But the state does get high winds and natural disasters, and if anybody out there is willing to to pick up a chainsaw or help out or just provide some assistance to people that are in need, definitely do that. So
yeah, and I know that like all the electricity has been, as of I think it was only like 4 or 5 days ago, all the electricity was finally back. There were some people that were, wait, what is today? I'm not even sure. Is today Wednesday? Yeah, today's Wednesday. My mind has just been since this happened. Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff since this happened. So
I know.
We're not short on content here today.
No. So I found out because people were showing up and bring us like helping out and bring generators and that kind of stuff, that while my electricity was out, we bombed Iran.
Yeah.
And dropped bunker busters on at least 3 facilities within Iran that had nuclear. They were using nuclear, trying to experiment with it or something.
They're creating the bomb, totally obliterated it. Yeah, I don't know. Rumor has it that the inspector said that they're at 60%, and the only reason you're going to add 60% is to make a bomb. And so Trump has been adamant that Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb, I guess. So that's his stance, and dropped some.
And the assessment has been cloudy, right? Like we don't know. I mean, it went from setting their nuclear program back 2 months to now 2 years to, completely destroying to, they moved everything out before the bunker busters hit. So who knows?
There's a lot of fishy stuff about this whole thing, man, because, one talk is about how long it takes those B-2s to fly from Missouri to Iran. But I have on good information that either if it took that long, Tulsi Gabbard was sitting in Congress testifying while those planes took off for that mission, or they hang out and fly around, which is all possible, right? But it was already planned. There's already too much shit to think that what they're telling us is any of the truth. But here's the thing, it was what I was saying earlier, is whether or not we obliterated that facility, those 3 facilities or not, we just gave them the whole incentive or go ahead to be as secretive as they want, because they're not going to let anybody in now.
Yeah, well, and why would they? If you were in their shoes, let's say that it was United States that wanted to build nuclear something. They had nuclear, whatever. Because I mean, we use nuclear for electricity, right? I mean, like that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that's only this percent.
Yeah, but I think that's the argument, right? Is like you don't have to enrich it to, is it 60% is the threshold for nuclear for a warhead or something like that, and then you only needed it 5% to power nuclear energy facilities.
But who are we getting those numbers from? Are those numbers? Are those numbers coming from Iran
Anthony
itself?
Fauci.
UN inspect. Yeah.
I mean, so like, and I feel like this is one of those, COVID moments where we have to do this because of these ambiguous numbers that somebody just if you go back far enough, they don't actually originate from any place except somebody's imagination.
Yeah. Right.
You have to stand 6 feet apart.
WMDs, all of it. It's just an inception of an idea, and then let it stir in the media, and you got the proper influencers or people that are paid to propagate the propaganda, and there you go. We saw it all in real time in the 2000s. Like, we were all active duty military at that time, I'm pretty sure, and I know I was all gung-ho, but I was like, remembering it now, it's the same exact game plan.
Yeah.
I'm seeing comments, and yes, TC, we've been ignoring your comments.
Oh, dude, I totally have.
Holy cow.
So
okay,
TC said 80% or higher.
Oh, wait. Rebecca. Yes, I would be interested in being on the Sharp Way radio show. Sorry, I should have opened the comments. Yeah, okay.
Anyway,
so
right. I think it's interesting. There's the schools of thought, right? So now we're giving Iran the incentive to stay in secret. The other play here, and I think before the show I kind of mentioned there is a population within Iran that is not happy with the way that their government has run, particularly since 1981. But there could be. I don't want to give Trump any credit, but there could be another revolution in Iran that says, "Hey, we want to be seen as a peaceful country." But I don't know that that exists. So it would be interesting to see if there were people that came into power that do say, no, we don't want to enrich any further than what nuclear energy would provide for us. We will allow the inspectors in. We're not going down this path of nuclear war because we don't want to associate our people with that. So I want to be optimistic, and I want to say that would be a great thing to kind of bring people up and say, hey, there are people that are going to say, look, this is what our leadership has led us to. It led us to the point of other nuclear powers being threatened by our presence. And it would be nice to see if there are nuclear facilities that are providing energy, and we're just going to continue on. We're going to be a peaceful nation and go back to,
I just don't understand why we get the gall to say we get to be the boss.
I agree. I'm not championing that, hey, we took this strike. But I want to be optimistic of the outcome, right? I want to be optimistic of the people that live in Iran that are peaceful people.
Well, they're obviously concerned with self-preservation when they're announcing any of their strikes beforehand. But all the crazy right-wingers will say, "Hey, they're as soon as they get the nuke, the whole world's gone because."
But that's what I'm saying is I think that regime is no longer in power. Like they're losing power at that regime. That was supporting Hezbollah, that was supporting Hamas, that was sending threats to Israel. And I'm not an Israel apologist at all, but I'm just saying that this is happening in the Middle East.
Yeah, but so just this is my question. Why would Iran be peaceful after this? If the United States is going to bomb them one way or the other because somebody has it in their idea that, okay, and maybe there for sure there are Iranians that are peaceful people.
Yes.
But the United States just bombed their country.
Right.
So why would anybody be like, oh, we're going to lead with peace, knowing that
Because
It's the
because
best yield we could do. What else are we gonna do?
I mean, well, if
think
they
about this.
have to
Think
pick
about this.
between peace
not-
and defending themselves, they're going to
Think
defend
about this.
themselves first.
Just I'm gonna posit a hypothetical here, right? Think about the friends of anti-Trumpers, right? That we're saying that might say, hey, we appreciate somebody else's ability to end the Trump regime, right? And we want to work with you. Now take that. I'm just saying, and I know this is being recorded, and I know we're on air. So, but think about just that hypothetical to say, hey, there are people in Iran that did not like the government. They were oppressed. They did not feel that Iran was being led in a peaceful manner. And so
they got to do it, man. So what the heck is this mean? So if that's the case, then we are for a regime change, like our doing.
That's the problem, right? It's
well, yeah, they've got to do it. If that's what those people want there, get our CIA out of there, get all the effing Americans out of there, and let them handle their own business.
I agree.
I think ultimately, though, that you're fighting against, human instincts. That if there's a conflict, people are going to, that great sense of self-preservation.
But human instinct is all about perspective.
Yeah, but they're going to go with their country rather than, like, if they have to pick, if they went into this being like, okay, back up. I don't think anybody in their right mind, besides people who are truly pacifists, will be like, we're going to go first with peace and then hope everybody else lays down their arms around them. Because that's not the way humanity works. Like, people don't just lay down their arms and their weapons just because another group laid down their arms and their weapons. That's a really good way to get taken advantage of.
That's not what I'm saying. People lay
down. Yeah, but if you're trading with them.
Hold on. People lay down their arms and weapons because they're facing superior power.
Or they have common incentives to trade.
Well, if they're doing it because they're facing superior, what'd you say? Superior what?
Superior power.
Yeah, superior power. Sorry, I did say my mind.
They know that, like, with this capability, if whatever Trump is saying is true, right, and that their nuclear facilities have been bombed to oblivion, right? There is no recourse for the current, we'll call it, how do I put it? The Iran to the current regime in Iran to reattack, to defend themselves, right? When you've been hit with superior power that you have no recourse, the only recourse is peace, is to say, hey, we got the message. We're not doing this anymore. Our people are standing up. We're going to change the way that we're acting, right? It might take 20 years, but give us some time.
I just don't see that happening.
Because
you have to submit.
I say I want to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Even if somebody there said that, we wouldn't get that message.
I agree. I'm not saying this is the right approach. I'm not saying this was an inevitability. Like, but I'm not in power, right? So I don't know the things that other people know. I'm just seeing it from my perspective and saying I want to be optimistic that something good will come of this. And I hate that. I hate that, things needed to be blown up. From what I hear, there were very few casualties, like personnel casualties, right? There were very, like, if you want to believe the Trump White House and say there were very precise strikes, okay. But there were very few personnel casualties, and it was a tactical, I don't know, strike, I guess, which
That's
is which
contingent on believing what they say, which I don't.
And I guess to me, it really is like, who the F are we to just go say you can't do this?
100%.
Right. If they're look, I don't think the United States has any sort of A, authority, or B, right to tell other countries that they're not allowed to have nuclear weapons when we have the nuclear weapons. Nobody in the United States is suggesting that we give up all our nukes. And even if they did say that, there would be a stash someplace secret that they would not tell anybody about.
Yeah.
Absolutely, there would
I
be.
100% agree. I 100%, and I'm not. I don't want like. I'm kind of gaining some perspective. I think it sounds like I'm backing this strike, and I'm not. It's not. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it happened.
Well,
I'm trying to be optimistic about the outcome of it. I'm not saying we were in the right, and hopefully, like this gets brought in front of Congress. This gets like, hey, let's. But I don't trust the people in Congress either to make the correct decisions, because we all know that they're funded by the war effort, by these people that benefited from this attack. Right, this attack was a revenue generation stream. Right.
And
I
hate the other thing that it did is it riled up Trump's base. Like the amount of people that came out as war apologists during this, just because it was Trump that did it. And that if Biden had made these strikes,
oh my God,
that those same people would have been villainizing them. All right. Yep. I think that out of all of this, that has been it's not eye-opening, because I've always been very cynical about people's principles, because I know people are ultimately shallow and weak. There's a large portion of the United States American voters that are right. But that the people that came out and was like, oh well, Trump didn't have any other option. He did say that Iran was never going to be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. And but there were a whole segment of people that I know that are non-interventionists and borderline isolationists, but we're cheering this on. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Just because it's your guy doing it doesn't make it right. I mean, at least be intellectually consistent.
Yeah.
And that's not what happened.
No, I agree. I mean, and it's tough with all the information coming out. Like, what do you trust? Right.
None of it.
So, yeah, exactly. So that's why I say, hey, I don't trust the experts. I don't trust the people, but I do trust that this happened. Right. I do trust that this happened. I want to see the best of it come out. And I hope that there are people in Iran that know that they are valued, and they do have the right to exist. Right. This is just the way it is. And I hope they make the best of this. So that's all I have to say.
They just got to stop chanting. Apparently, I saw the chants.
Let's just say, I think out of there's been a lot of hysteria when you talk about Iran, and Americans get a little hysterical, right?
Yeah.
Who cares if somebody's saying death to Iran?
I agree.
Isn't that exactly what they're saying when they say bomb Iran?
Yeah.
Or death to America. Totally. It's exactly the same thing when they're saying bomb Iran. Death to America, bomb Iran. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys aren't all that different from each other. It's, and I think, I can't remember who said this, or maybe I saw it in a movie. But it was British soldiers. It was during the Revolutionary War. British soldiers fighting American colonists, for freedom. And, and one of them was like, why are we fighting them? And they're like, we're fighting for our country. And the other guy was like, but we're fighting for they're fighting for their country. And so ultimately all conflict, people aren't going to talk, because if somebody has told you the Germans are the enemy, you're going to go shoot the Germans.
Right.
Yep. And it's not going to make any sense. And people are going to die, and a lot of bloodshed is going to happen.
Until someone in charge is smart enough to be like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah, but when you get people with that, when you get people kind of like that blood rage, and I think that this is another human characteristic that's a flaw, is that people crave war. War is exciting. And I think that's why you saw when Iran was bombed, that there was a number of people that were like, oh, heck yeah, let's, go. And because that's
maybe. I think there's
war is
also
a drug. That's what it is.
there's also the terrorist math thing where you kill one, but now you just created 10 more, right? And so that same logic goes to patriots or anybody else that says you killed my dad or my nephew, senselessly. That's my mission and my one-track mind now is kill you.
Look, 20 years from now, Iranians are still going to remember the United States bombed their country.
Yeah, just drop some bunker busters. Man, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but at Ali Asalim in Kuwait, the hangars there were built by the French back in the 80s or something. Said they're bomb-proof bunkers, but then when Saddam took over, America dropped some bunker busters in there. And I got to be inside one of them where it was just a tiny little hole and you see a rebar. And then inside the hangar was all this like shrapnel stuff. And then there were a few other ones off in the distance around the flight line that were just totally crumbled in with like 10-foot concrete, totally just not 10-foot rubble. It's just collapsed inward.
Yeah. Well, I should tell you something I saw when I was in Iraq. And this was 2004, December of 2004. It was either right before the Battle of Fallujah or right after. I can't remember the timeline on that. But we were based out of Ramadi, and Ramadi's towards the western side of Iraq, which is near Syria, right? And so there's not a lot out there after you get outside of Ramadi. And we went on this mission and it was a week-long mission to clean up these bunkers that were probably the size of 2 football fields, wide and long. Like they were huge, and they were buried underground, and then this is desert, right? So all you see above is just sand, and there's like a smokestack, and there's a door, this giant door that swings open in the front. Only one way in and out, but they're buried in the sand with a smokestack. But there were, as far as if you went and stood on top of one of those, as far as your eye could see in every direction were tons of these. And these, like I said, huge facility, halfway buried under the dirt. All of them empty. By the time we invaded Iraq, they had all been cleaned out. All of that stuff. And when you're talking about like the deserts in Iraq, you have a pretty good line of sight, right? There's nothing to break your line of sight. So you can see as far, like the sand and the dirt and the haze and the sky and stuff, you can see as far as it'll let you, but like way off in the distance, you could see these bunkers. And there were bombs out there. That had American ordnance that hadn't exploded. And that's what we were out there to clean up, is that because it had been bombed, but very few of them had actually been penetrated. And the majority were it was just empty. They were all empty. So I'm guessing, and we were out there for quite a while, I'm guessing that all of that stuff was just loaded onto trucks and taken straight into Syria.
Yeah.
As soon as they've, came to terms with the Americans were coming, because why would you keep knowing that you're facing an army like the United States Army? Why would you just sit back and wait for them to attack? And so I replay like this experience, like with this situation. If the Iranians knew that they had gotten into the targets of the American military, and they know what our capabilities are, which are great, right? Why would they sit back and wait for us to attack, knowing that the United States doesn't exactly have a long history of being honest, right?
Or patient.
I think that it's a very bold statement by Trump to claim that the problem is taken care of. I don't think it is at all. I think that what actually happened is that they had contingency plans, and they also have incentive to not be fully honest with the countries around them. Why would they be? And they have, backup. They have a plan B, and they have a way to get things out quickly if they need to, because not everybody hates Iran,
Nope.
right?
Right.
And countries that do not hate Iran would be the ones that they would naturally turn to. I don't think that stuff's exploded. I don't think it's destroyed. And I think that we won't learn what the results of these attacks will be for quite some time, but I can guarantee there's going to be unintended consequences.
Sure. Like you said, the countries that don't hate Iran that also have nukes, and they could just funnel them right over there if they wanted, or just give it to them. I don't know what kind of navy Iran has, or you know what I mean, like what kind of capability they've got air-wise to deliver. Everybody says they can't deliver them to the United States.
Yeah,
I'd like to think our Navy could definitely keep the ocean clear, on east and west of our nation, but I know that there's been talks of, this Russian sub just made it here this one day, and and I also know plenty of the people that are the active duty soldiers and sailors in the military right now.
Yeah, we should talk more off air when this isn't being recorded. And by the way, I just want to take a moment and say hello to our FBI agents.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the competence of our active duty folks right now is not very hopeful. But anyways,
all right.
The last thing we are actually. Oh, sorry. You have anything else?
I was gonna not on Iran. I was gonna say there's a lot of things happening closer to home.
Yes.
That also have to be looked at as well. I mean, over the past 2 weeks, we've had, the guy who politically assassinated,
did you guys see Alpha News lady on Tucker about that?
I didn't watch the episode with Tucker
Liz
and what was her name?
Liz Collins.
Liz Collins.
Yeah, I did not watch it. Liz Collins, so that's another. Maybe that's my cynical side still coming out, but I don't know.
I'm not a real big fan of hers either. Like, there's a part of me is like, and then, but it really took. She kind of took a. I didn't listen to it all that closely. It was background noise while I was in the office, but I mean, there's a lot of different theories going out around about this Vance Belter dude and motives and all this different stuff, where I kind of am happy that we really didn't talk about it right away. It was kind of the end of the last show 2 weeks ago that we were like, shoot, we didn't.
I mean, there was so much stuff coming out that you don't believe, and each side jumping in, and like you look, okay, Liz Collins married to Bob Kroll, right?
Yep.
So, who knows what she knows, or the information that is being shared with, Lieutenant Kroll, or former Lieutenant Kroll, because I don't think he can serve as a peace officer in Minnesota anymore. So,
I don't know that. I know that he has some history.
Yeah.
I think he's the union rep, though. I think he's like the union boss for the police union.
Right. Yeah, the Police Officer Federation of Minneapolis, I think, or something like that. So,
well, I know, like, whenever we've tried to reach out to Alpha News about things that are going on with the LPMN, it's just crickets.
Yep.
They don't want to have anything to do with us. They are entirely too much in bed with the Republicans to ever even entertain somebody that might actually challenge, their people or their narrative. So she might call herself an objective journalist, but she's not. Right. Absolutely not.
She has
more than one way to censor information.
I agree, but I think this Vance Volter thing, I think there's so much stuff that is like.
Well, again, how do we know what's true?
That's the thing is like, okay, now we're seeing the first thing that came out was like, because it was the same day that the No Kings rally was supposed to go, right? It was, they called all that off or tried to call it off because he had No Kings rally signs in his car or something like that.
It was after the rally, though, wasn't it? It was after.
No, it was the day. It was the morning of.
Yeah,
the
it was
rally.
the morning of.
Oh,
yeah, it was the morning of the rally, and then they issued all the warnings to say, hey, everybody needs to be safe. Don't go out. Don't attend, because he had these flyers or something in his car.
Well, and he
But
was
then-
still at large. They didn't
Yeah.
catch him right away. Not only did they not catch him
that's
right
right. It
away,
was that day. Yeah.
but the police, the law enforcement was with him when he did the murders, right?
Yeah, they showed up. Well, they showed up at the scene while he was in the act. I guess he ran through the house, is what I hear, and then out the backyard into the golf course, and they lost him. But they didn't trail because there were shots fired or something like that. So they didn't want to trail into the house, and so if he escapes out the back and they didn't have containment, I just think the reaction was immediate, and they didn't know what was going on. Who knows? Who knows who sent the car over? Who sent the police car over to Representative Hortman's house?
Well,
Well,
by that time, that they were the second. Actually, they were the
third or fourth.
The fourth.
one that was targeted. So
Yeah.
that would have made sense that by the time they realized, because the other Senator Hoffman had
Yeah.
already, and his wife had already been shot. Then they would have, because they didn't die, so they're, I think, still recovering in the hospital. But then, so they would have gotten the phone calls about them being shot, and I would think that would have been why the person showed up at the speaker's house,
Right.
just as protocol, right? And then, but was completely unprepared, obviously, for what was actually happening.
So there's TC's got a lot of these theories popping on the comments. I don't know if we want to address it, but it's really, I mean,
Do we want to address TC in the comments? Is that what you're saying?
well, no, what's what he's saying.
love
This is something that, right, folks that aren't fans of law enforcement, especially folks that like the guy that shot Philando Castile, and it's just like, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing when I've got this firearm and I have to engage. So what do? And all of a sudden there's this possible dude that just shot at two other senators, and I'm stationed at this house, and I'm probably just Mr. Reserve Cop because they just put cops at all the representatives' house all over, and whatever, each one has their own local departments. But either way, this is 4 a.m, and so this is how I totally see it. I feel like it's barely being covered up that the guy was walking up and the guys were like, oh my God, he's here. What do we do? What do we do? And then he's trying to get in the house. What do we do? And they engage with the guy. And it's very likely that their bullets went past this dude and hit them. I'm just saying that's
an autopsy would be able to tell the difference in caliber between the door and the people.
Sure, but that coroner has to give that report, right? And this is exactly where Liz Collin comes in and talks about the coroner and George Floyd and all these things that happened at the coroner's office. And so who the heck do we ever get to believe? So that's
nobody.
Yeah, no doubt. And we can talk about this stuff, and it's interesting. It's tragic, that's for sure. I mean, nobody deserves this stuff.
Well, and here's the thing: is that Senator Hoffman was one of the authors on our Defend the Guard bill.
Yes.
So I mean, all of this was a little close to home, especially being involved in Minnesota politics. The way things have gone down the last few years. This should have been an eye-opening experience for everybody that was watching this happen, because it was so close to home. But then again, all I see, and maybe some people are internalizing this, being like, hey, we really need to lay down the boxing gloves and try to come to each other in maybe a different approach. But online, it's just the hostility, I think, has increased instead of decreased.
I agree.
Because there's so many people that are creating their own narrative to project the blame onto other people, and that's what's happening.
And it
Yep.
just creates a wider divide, right?
Yeah.
Like the polarization in Minnesota politics is almost second to none right now, and it's scary because it's like, you know, everybody thinks that their side is the winner, and
Right.
it's scary, but there's just I don't know. We've got to come together at some point. So
I mean, practically though, like how that would actually look like in real time. What does that look like? Like we can talk about coming together, but what are we doing to actually make that happen?
to me, it really boils down to 100% transparency.
Yeah.
That's the only thing is if everybody has access to the same information, that's the only way that we can actually get something moving.
Truth, yeah.
And I think it starts with like I mean, I know I've told you to, you know, about what you know what I'm trying to build right now is essentially complete API access to municipal financial transactions. So every municipality in the state of Minnesota would basically we would publish all of their financial transactions, obviously keeping PII or identifying information hidden, right? But at least like payroll information. But at least have those roll up to the departments that the payroll check was being written from, and the budgets that are tracking there. So, but it comes down to like, hey, 100% transparency, starts with the financials and then moves on to, project bids. It moves on to everything up the chain, but it's got to start local. And so it comes down to everybody having the same information and individual citizens going out to their city council and saying, hey, what happened with this transaction? We can get lost in the sauce with all of the buzz coming about, the epic things that are happening in our society. But 20 years from now, when whoever's in power, if we don't have the capability to audit our local governments, we're not going to have any power at all, right? And so it's got to be established immediately. It's got to be established now, and it's going to take a long time for it to become the norm. So there's going to be an adoption rate, but the way I see it, and just my personal perspective is the way we come together is by having everybody have the information and being able to have those conversations in public and say, what happened here? Why did it happen? You know, what information are you seeing? What analysis do you have? Because number one, you can't analyze something that you don't measure, and you can't measure something that you don't track. And if not everybody is tracking or has the ability to track financial information at our local government level, we can't analyze it. So that's my 2 cents.
Right. And I think it actually will grow from there, right? Once that transparency is, and whether it starts at the local level or whatever level, that dang spending the money needs to be transparent, and taking the money needs to be transparent. It really does.
I would like to add something else to that, because I think that a lot of times, especially libertarians, because we're totally, schooled in like the philosophy and the economics and all of those things. I think that oftentimes what gets overlooked is human need and human emotion. And additionally, we need these things. We need these, the transparency and the processes to all be fair and equal and honest. But also we need a group of people that are willing to just be decent to each other, not operate in a way that always dehumanizes their, the opposing side, but that people are, and putting the first foot you put forward is giving people the benefit of the doubt and allowing people to be wrong sometimes without demonizing them through the process, because
and I fully believe that like some of this stuff happens through ignorance, through people just not communicating
and not communicating.
And it's
assuming they got nukes. You can't see me point. Assuming they got nukes, right? That's what happens when you assume somebody's got nukes over there, and it's like, well, if they're chanting, we better take them out now because they're chanting, and they assume they got nukes. So this is how, just scale it down a little bit. I assume that guy's concealing a weapon, and his intent is dirty just because he had to shave 5 days. I don't know. You know what I mean? That all this kind of shit.
Yeah. Well, if you build it, they will come, right?
And then there's
you're gonna see what you want to see.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think
we need people that are going to be able to discern through the propaganda.
Right. No, and that's why I say it comes like when
you
really tail it to the end, it comes down to money, right?
And
it
those
comes down to the
folks
economy
that are able to do that are smart enough to get the heck out of this game that we're playing.
or we run headfirst into it and we say this needs to change, right?
Well, we just haven't been knocked over the head enough. That's
I just, I go through it in the mornings. I wake up and I do my, my self-flagellation or and it's the party stuff and the politics. I honestly, if I'm being totally, I hate this. I absolutely hate this. You know what I hate more though is being told what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
I hate that it has to be this way. Like that they're like I think it just comes down to the point where, and every generation goes through this, right? I mean, we're all about the same age. So every generation goes through this. There's always people that see things in a different light, that see things that have a different perspective. Whether you want to say that we boil this down to being educated, and it's not necessarily educated. It's just what particular thing that you like, okay, TC says, yes, we are autistic geeks, right? So, but I think that's like, there's a bit of that in everybody. What do you focus on? You focus on things that you're interested in, right? So some people are interested in, providing everything for everybody, and they want socialism or communism, and that speaks to them, like the Mamdani guy in New York, right? So it speaks to them. He's got a following. He's got a bunch of people that listen to him, and he's now projected to be the mayor of New York City. Like, seriously, this is insane. From our perspective, it's insane from our perspective. It's not insane from a socialist or a communist perspective, because that's the end game. That's what they want.
None of them know how to fish. Guys handing out fish. That's what it is. They're going to follow the guy with all the fish.
They want government shoes so they can stand in the bread lines. That's the problem. Yeah. So,
Obama found.
We need better shoes, right? Like, so, but that's the thing, is like we're dealing with there's 360 million people in the United States, right? You're never going to have complete compliance.
There's a lot. There's like billions in other countries.
Pure society.
No, it's never going to be pure. So we got to break down like what are the basic morals that we need to live by as a society, right? And it comes down to like how far do we encroach upon that, on individual liberty and freedom, and in the name of safety, right? In the name of comfort. So how far do you encroach upon that? And I think there's people that like maybe like us that say, hey, we've already encroached upon that enough, and now the time has come to put some of that back, right? But there's also people out there that are like, no, we need to encroach upon that more. We need complete safety, and we need the government to be able to run everything because they're benevolent and we trust them. And so, but we're always going to have this fight, and it's going to come down to who holds the cash, who holds the money, who's being able to fund the politics of it.
Are you going into the next little?
Hey, that's a great transition.
We got a few minutes left.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
But we got a few minutes left. That is a perfect transition, because on Politico, and you can go look up this article. I don't have the link on me, but go look it up. Politico, Elon Musk. And apparently Elon Musk has said that he wants to form another political party because he's so frustrated and mad about the Doge thing with Trump. And he threw a lot of money behind Trump, right?
Yeah.
And got burnt because now we have the big, beautiful bill that's going to add trillions of dollars to the national debt. And that's not what Elon Musk had, joined on to that campaign team to be a part of. And that's not what Doge originally was meant to be. It was meant to weed out the overspending, the fraud, the corruption, and then additionally do something about it, which is not happening, right? So he's got the money, he's got the platform, he's got all these things, and now he's saying on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now that he wants another political party. So the national chair of the Libertarian Party has said, what?
We're here. Hello.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what. If Elon Musk wants to fund a state auditor candidate that could bring forward complete transparency for all municipal financial transactions, maybe I've got an idea for him.
Right? We need and this is what Stephen Nicalia said. Did I say his?
I don't know. I've never heard it said.
Because he's the national chair of the party. It makes sense for somebody like Elon Musk not to start a political party over from scratch,
right?
But to fall into a political party that probably already aligns with a lot of his principles and values.
Right.
Do you need to align 100%? Absolutely not. You just need to be willing to say you're not going to use the state as a weapon against the people. That's what it comes down to be a part of the libertarians. Right. And we have ballot access already in most states, not all. In states like ours, it's not automatic. There's a lot of work we got to do to get on the ballot, but we do know that we can overcome it to get on the ballot. And if we actually had a little bit of funding and weren't just relying strictly on grassroots to get it all done, we could probably be on, and be in multiple elections here in this state. But the challenges and the hurdles that we have to overcome to be able to get just one candidate on the ballot is pretty big. More than that is a lot. So,
well, and I think what would be interesting is, and I've wrestled actually with this idea. There is a political aspect to it of changing the way that changing the political leadership in the bipartisan era that we currently exist in. But there's also there is the grassroots effort, right? That says, hey, and I've gone on this track and I know I'm kind of rambling right now, but you guys know that I want to push this forward. I want to run for state auditor. But there's also the possibility of why don't I just do this anyway? Because all of the information is public. Right now, the process is go out and let's just request all the information from each municipality and bring it together in a data warehouse, publish a dashboard, make it available through APIs. But there is no money to be made in it. So let's just start a nonprofit and then fund a nonprofit to be able to do this, and then everybody has the information. I'm kind of torn between, did we use the institution of the government to be able to do this anyway, or do we just do it outside of government and say, hey, this is already available? People just don't have access to it, and they have to wait 10 days for somebody to respond and then do all the work themselves.
I think TC made a comment about autists in our party. We really wish we have the ability in the numbers to do all this stuff, right? It's the motivation. And maybe this is what Elon Musk could bring, right? And this is what I think Dave Smith brought in 22. He brought me onto the party, and maybe, where, hey, there's a little bit more excitement. Now, yes, everything still has to happen grassroots, because that's the only way it actually blooms.
Yeah.
And so having Elon jump on, and all the X posts, he's posting Rothbard all the time and Mises stuff all the time. And it's like, he's obviously aware of the Libertarian Party. And so if he's talking about starting another party, he either is aware of all the dumb drama that's gone on the last 5 years, or thinks that he can start his own cult.
But I think there's two things. There's the ability and the financial capital, the capital to be able to fund something, which obviously he has. But there's also, like, you can't do it yourself. Number one, there's got to be people with aligned vision, right, and aligned goals, and that's tough to collaborate at a massive scale, right? So it's who are you following? Are you following the guy with the money or the guy with the plan, right? And so if we've got to have people that are bringing ideas to this, this collaboration, or if you want to call it a new party, fine. Or if you want to say it's the Libertarian Party, we've got to have ideas coming to the surface to say, how do we start to pull away from the state and bring power back to the individuals? So yes, there's the capital aspect of it, there's the financial aspect, but there's also ideas, and there's leadership, and there's basically creating another movement, right? We've had the Ron Paul movement. He was a leader. He was somebody that lit a fire, that had a vision of what he was trying to achieve. It wasn't all about money at that point. Now we're getting into this point where it is predominantly about money, but we still have to have those leaders with vision.
So something I've been thinking a lot about, especially having run for federal office last election cycle, is that I spent a lot of time just observing and listening to people and trying to, I don't know, kind of trying to, all these ideas that people had and all their frustrations, and then making sense of them. You know what I mean? I think that if the Libertarian Party is ever going to, and I actually, okay, scratch that. It doesn't even have to be the Libertarian Party. It doesn't have to be the party, but a good idea. For a good idea not to die or to fizzle out, you have to have a group of people that are dedicated to the idea, not to the ringleader of it. Because people are always going to be, people aren't perfect. So
Right.
People are always going to make bad decisions at some point. And if people have wrapped up the momentum and the energy around a person who is eventually going to let them down, then that's where that's where it all starts to fizzle out. And I think that's what we saw with Dave Smith. And then, one of the disadvantages of being human is that we all age and die, so like you have people like Ron Paul who can't keep doing this every day of their life, even though he was the kind of person that people respected and looked up to, but that at some point, it takes a toll on you as a person.
Well, I think there's absolutely that, but there's also people that try to do everything, and you run yourself ragged, right? You get really thin, and maybe you're not an expert in everything, right? So maybe your role changes when you switch to a different topic or a different effort or a different movement. Your role might change in that movement just because it's not your specialty. So I think there's got to be collaboration, and this is why we build teams. You don't have HR teams leading IT teams, right? It doesn't happen. And just because you're an HR leader doesn't mean you're going to be great in any other position. So like I'm just saying, there's reasons why there's departments, there's reasons why there's efforts. I think at least the Libertarian Party everybody tries to be the expert in everything. That's just my perspective. But there are definitely coordinated efforts that need to happen, whether it's a marketing effort, whether it's a outreach effort, whether it's testifying in front of a legislature. Those are different things. People aren't going to be great at everything. So if you want to get out and get involved and you've got a specific skill set that could lend to whether it's the Libertarian Party or some grassroots effort to pull back the state, definitely put your ideas out there, start a movement, start getting people involved. It doesn't have to align with every little bit of where libertarians are really good at being autistic and pinpointing things that don't align with 100% libertarians. Like the joke is nobody's 100% libertarian. So
you're not a real libertarian.
I am. You're not real.
You're not libertarian
I'm
enough.
the only real libertarian in this group. No, I'm just kidding.
It's one of the first comments we missed from TC. We're libertarians.
Rebecca, we're not here. This is all a figment of your imagination anyway.
It probably is. It's probably just need to unplug from the Matrix. I told you I'm cynical.
Oh, I love it.
If you want more information, lpmn.org.
Oh, and yeah, that's where you can go to become a member. There's a membership link, a donation link. There's a page for events. If you're up in the north, we're having our affiliate meeting the second Saturday of July up here in Bemidji. And I know there's some down in CD4 and St. Paul.
CD4 is this next Wednesday, the 9th.
Okay. Yeah. So, and that's all on there. Or if it isn't, email info@lpmn.org, ask, and you can get in touch with one of us. But I just wanted to finish this on what we were talking about, like the politics. The grassroots is the foundation of everything that we do. Even if somebody big comes in and has money and is able to just throw it at this, that's not ultimately going to fix the problem, because we have to have the human element that's pushing the envelope forward and getting this done and changing. There's always this debate about what needs to change first, the culture or the politics. And I think they have to go hand in hand. You can't separate the two. One reflects the other, and they have to change simultaneously. So
what's the idea?
I'm doing, and there's, we would love to, work with new people that have a lot of ideas and, help you make them happen. And especially people who are self-starters. Yeah.
Like TC there, looks like he's starting his own affiliate. And
you mean Liam Neeson? Is that
Black Robe Regiment?
He said I have a certain set of skills. Yeah.
Yeah. So lpmn.org for membership or donation, and we will see you next week.